to really get wound up. But
We just
fun.
put Ramsey in a corner.
Tie me off. All righty then, okay? My pleasure. I hope you learned something.
Meetings. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to make sure that this thing was spinning. Yeah. It's really fixated on you. It likes you.
Gotta hope not.
And it's one of those that moves around.
What we got now? We got different meetings, right?
I have a presentation, then district.
Oh, there's one more?
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Rod.
Right. Come in one door and go out the other. Yay.
They're in here again. Yeah.
We got a minute or two.
I'm
Dan, you
not
okay,
sure.
you guys?
I think we're supposed to get started right away, so if we can, wait till everybody gets here. Let me mute this real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I gonna do? Keep teaching and then teach everybody and then be a
Yeah,
mentor.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
That's the way it used to work.
But then you'll be one of the old dogs and you start teaching everybody. You'll know the ropes. That's how it works.
No.
Except we're supposed to start.
I just gotta make sure there's somebody to take my job when I leave, so this program survives.
He's really interested.
That's what I heard. He would be good
He
there.
asked me where he could come, and I said that's the community that most fits what you do.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, and they're pretty open to new things. Since I came, they're now open to new things because I shook them up. So, and I'm always trying new things. So I have shook them up. They're not afraid of new things now.
Okay, so we'll get
So we're
started.
ready for somebody that
Let's,
wants to stick around a while. I'll have been there 8 years.
just a little background. I've been doing the horse contest for 34 years. And when and it had just started shortly before that, the reasons were pretty rough when I first started. And then through the mid-90s to about 10 years ago, were really solid. I mean, everybody could talk. This last year, I took reasons again for the 34th time, and they were atrocious. So when they asked me if I could put on any kind of workshop, this is the one I chose to do because, it wasn't that kids didn't know what they were talking about. They knew horses. They just didn't know how to put it together to have it make any sense. And so it's really important that we understand format and how we do that. So you guys at home on the drop drive, and for you guys too, I put a PDF copy of the American Quarter Horse Judging Manual that covers every class that we judge, except for the different breed halter classes that you'll have to just go and look at for Morgans and Appies. And well, virtually Appies paints, those are all the same as quarter horses. But then when we start looking at American Saddlers and Arabs and the warm bloods and thoroughbreds, you're going to see some different terminology. But most of it, the one thing is that, at our state, primarily stock horses, quarter horses, that's what we have. We'll get a few Arab classes, but over time, but most of the time, we're going to be judging stock horses and quarter horses, which all has the same terminology too. So I put that in the drop drive for you guys, and also this format. If you turn to the back page of this, there's a recipe.
Thank you.
Okay, and when we score reasons, we start out with format, and format's worth 15. All right, and if they don't talk pairs, and they don't have an introduction and a conclusion, they get a 0 for that. Okay, so that means if they did everything else right, they get 35. Chances are, if they didn't have format, they're not going to break 20. All right, so format gives you 15. And then from there, we go with terminology, transitions, and identifiers. For each of those, we throw on 2 points. So basically just a well-organized set of real terminology as it applies to the horses they saw. Well, everybody's going to score a 35 or above. And when you go to nationals, and when you compete back there, you get 4 sets of reasons. You don't know the 4 classes you're going to get reasons on until after the contest is over. So then, and when they announce them, the first set, and they have you in order in a set of chairs. So the first set, you might have 3 minutes to prep and walk up and give your reasons. So what you need to do when you train, and right now we have so much more things to train with. You don't have to go look at horses. You've got livestockjudging.com for $100, and you can see 400 sets, horse classes. And the one thing that I do when I train kids with that is I don't let them look at the officials, because the one thing about judging horses, and probably judging anything, but horses especially, everything you need to learn to judge horses, you learn by the time you're 2 years old. You don't want to mess with that. I don't ever teach kids how to judge, how to see things. I teach them how to talk and I teach them what to say, but I absolutely don't teach them how to train horses or judge horses. The kids that have been around horses have a little advantage because they've seen more and more of them, but the more a kid looks at with the horses, the better they're going to be at it. But just let them judge, kids. It's all about balance and symmetry, and that was established by the time you're 2 years old inside of our brain. And if you try to mess with that, you're going to screw them up. Okay, so when I teach, coach livestock or coach horses, I don't teach them how to judge. Teach them how to talk, teach them how to organize, but do not teach them how to judge because they can do that on. And the other thing is, tell them you can judge horses better from 60 feet away than you can from standing on top of them. And actually, the more they get better at it, driving down the road, they can judge horses better than they can standing with them. Because it's just that first impression, what you look at, you can see what's wrong and what's not by balance and so forth. So if we look at these terminology, the most important thing is if you look at that back page, and it shows you that, how many terms. And usually in our first set, since we're talking about our best horse, we're going to use more terminology. Now, the most important thing is kids understand the terms that they use. When a kid says something that's totally backwards about this horse because it was a term they got off a list, I'm going to take points off when I'm scoring. So it's really important that they, have them learn 10 things off of this list and make sure they know what it means. And if they just have those 10 terms, that's 20 more points, right? And if they got the format right and 20 more points, that's a 35. If they can get 2 transitions in there, right, that's 39. You talk 2 39s and everybody on your team does that, you win the contest regardless how you place it. Because talking is how you win and how you do well at this contest. So you can go through there. The big thing is that it's the format, in the introduction, how I saw the class. Then in my top pair, in my middle pair, in my final pair, I place this class at 4, and then thank you, and that should last about 1 minute and 10 seconds. If it's more than that, they're talking way too much for their rambling. If it's 30 seconds, they didn't work hard enough. But anything more than a minute, the judge is going to lose their attention anyway because you've heard 34 sets of reasons you're numb. But so the big thing is that's just how we follow through that. So there's no mystery to this, but if you do the format right, then your kids, because I don't ever, when I take kids anywhere, set them up to fail. You want them to do as best they can. And a lot of the kids that I listen to when you get over the years, they know horses, they know what they're looking at. No one's took the time to teach them how to talk. And we can show them videos all day long, but if you don't physically make them write some, and write them out in this format, and that just is ingrained into them. And then after they start writing them in that format, they're going to start taking their notes in that format. And then they're just going to start seeing them in that format, and they don't have to take notes at all. Because as long as they can see the class in their head when they're talking it, they can do that. When my daughter was on my team at nationals, I bet you could ask her now, she could still give you the 4 sets she did. That was when she was a sophomore in high school. But she was 11th in reasons at nationals. She talked a 48, a 49, a 40, and a 42. And it was just, the kids that were good for me over the years were the ones that could see them and just remember them and not have to take notes. Because kids get so focused on writing stuff down, they forget what they saw. So if you can just teach them, just remember what they look like. And when they do their notes, just how they look, and then the order in which we talk things. So if you look there, it kind of says at the beginning, you talk your general appearance, that's the opening of each pair on the top horse. You say why that one was better overall than the others. Then we talk about balance. And then once we talk about balance, then we talk them from bottom to top, back to front. Okay, so the other comments as you go through, there's a lot of things. I hear a lot of things about kind eyes and swan neck and all this other stuff, which don't mean shit. You don't ride your head. You don't ride your neck. All right, so unless it's, I went to a horse sale this spring down in Lewiston, and they had a Hancock stud there. And Hancock studs are usually jug-headed, big-headed, and they're good horses, but they're ugly. This horse had the prettiest head, and I couldn't keep from looking at it. And that's, to me, that's really strange because I absolutely ignore their head. Unless it's only this wide, then it means they don't have any brains. They can't think. But you know, literally, this one had the prettiest head of any Hancock horse I've ever seen. And so, really, if there's nothing special about you, don't talk about their head. Honestly, because you know, kind of, I don't mean crap when it comes to their performance, and that's what we're talking about right here, right? Muscling is the most important thing we talk about. So, I kind of highlighted some things over there. On the next page, it talks about there's four ways to talk about muscling. I mean, 4 terms that say exactly the same thing. But if you say, you know, each horse was wider 4.5, you get 2 points. You use the same term 4 times, it doesn't count again. So you got to teach your kids to, once they recognize something, they learn different ways to say it so they can apply it and get the points for it. All right. Then when we talk about structure, that's the second most important thing. And like with anything else in biology, form follows function. If the horse is steep-shouldered, he better be short-strided. All right. If he's long back, he's going to be rough. You know, if he's toed out, he's not going to travel straight. I mean, so you can't say one thing and then the other and contradict yourself because that doesn't work. So kids have to understand that form follows function. And that's the only time when I tell kids to look at them close when they're still, is because if you saw something when they were walking, they better stand the same way, or you didn't really see what you thought you saw. So, and then the way of going is the last thing, and really there, either you talk about the poorest traveler or the best traveler in the class. You don't want to spend any more time on it than that. There's some faults there that you talk about, you know, because if you're going to put a horse underneath another, there better be something wrong with it. So that's where that comes in. And then the very most important thing, I think, is connective terms, because kids don't understand that they, you know, you're just talking, but at the same time, you don't want to just go in my top pair and then instead of saying moving to my middle pair or something more professional, if you just start off with your middle pair, it's not as good as if you put the connective terms in. It makes you sound more intelligent, if nothing else. So that's what I kind of try to get kids to do then. And then make sure they're in comparative terms and all of that. Use EST words on the first horse, right? Because he's the best. And then you use ER words for the other one. And then when you get to the bottom horse, you try to say something, at least one good thing about the horse that placed last, or that just didn't have the quality to stand with the other horses today. You don't want to kind of beat up on it because, of course, people don't like it when you beat up on their phone. Okay, so that's all this is in a nutshell. The big thing is that you do the format. If kids can talk format, they're, 10 turns in format, that's a 35, and that's respectable. Okay, if they get some polish on them after that, that only goes up. But when we look at the average score from this year was 14 across the board, that's horrible. Horrible. And my kids included. I mean, my kids, I had 4 days. We changed it quarter, and that's when I got the kids on my horse team. So, I mean, they read their reasons and they were formatted right. They just read them and got a lower score. But, so if you can get your kids to talk, and make them talk to each other. You're intimidating, so don't have them start talking to you because they think you're going to put them in FFA jail or something. So, so just, have them talk to each other, give each other reasons, critique each other, work together on how, how we make it better. I actually make them start in pairs and say them together, build a set together. And then once they just start doing that, it gets better. But it's in all the contests that we give orals in, they're just, the quality is going down. So we need to figure out how to make that better. And that's what this was about today. So I'm not going to bore you anymore. If you guys have some questions, I will answer them for you. Yes?
Is the scorecard in the handbook?
No. I mean, that's kind of just how we build our own rubric here in our state. We do that, we sing before the contest and talk about that.
So can you go over, I know you said it like 5 times, but can you go over those points again?
So
You were saying.
it's 15 points for format. And then we try to work 2 points for each correctly used term, correctly used transitions, grants and faults. But the thing is when they say things that aren't true, they lose points back off of that. So that's the most important thing. Oh, didn't talk about indicators. Indicators are colors, face marking, halter color, just something that differentiates one horse from the other. And so we would say in my top pair, I place 1/2, 1 the rung, that's your indicator. And so you do that just at the start of each horse. And by doing that, that's another 2 points per indicator. So, you can see if you just check boxes, you can get a fairly good score pretty easily if you just check boxes.
So what's the max score you can get on?
50.
50.
Is there a reason some of these terms are highlighted?
Well, they were
I
ones
might have
that,
missed I didn't know.
well, they were ones that I wanted to use, and I highlighted a lot more, and unfortunately, when my copy machine did that, it did not,
You didn't like
because I
that.
highlighted them in color, thinking that would work better than doing it in gray, and no, it just said, no, I don't see yellow.
That's
So-
that's okay. I was just wondering if there was like something.
Because there are certain terms that I think are simple and work for me, because I try to keep it simple, stupid. Because when kids search for words that don't make, if it's hard to say, you don't want to be saying it. It just needs to roll off your tongue. Yeah,
Can you give us one second?
out of my, just pulled out of my ass.
Yeah.
Nice. So,
Because I think it's important, like, for me to hear, like, okay, here you do this, that.
1, 2, 3, and 4 is how I place this class of quarter horse mares. I saw the class with an obvious top and bottom pair. In my top pair, I picked 1/2, one dominated the class with its overall pattern, balance, and muscling. One stood wider for an act, with well-muscled gaskins carrying to a long, rounded croup, a short back that tied into a correct sloping shoulder, a wide chest, prominent V muscle with a bulging forearm, with no obvious grants or faults. In my middle pair, I placed 2/3. 2, the Palomino, was a horse that was more rugged, showed more muscle than the horse that stood below it. I will grant that 3 had a prettier, kinder eye. Moving to my bottom pair, I placed 3/4. 3, the Bay, was a better traveler, was smoother throughout, and exhibited more balance than our 4 horse that lacked the quality to stand with the other horses today. For these reasons, I placed this class of quarter horse mares 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thank you.
No, I wouldn't give it
When they
50.
do
He
their
doesn't.
oral,
It's
So
on
they're
the beginning.
just being judged based on what they say before, but not necessarily on the placing that.
Oh, no, you can place it ass backwards, but if you talk it right, you can still do well.
All right.
Thank you.
So that's what we got.
So helpful.
It is, it's just check boxes, man.
So were you reciting those reasons on the class? Do you remember?
No, I just made shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way he couldn't have lied.
Yeah, I did lie.
He didn't lose points for lying.
So I guess we have our district meetings now. We will see you guys at home. Oh, sorry, Chris. I miss Chris. Sorry, Chris, I did not know that you were there, so I will get that back to you later. I'll get you all the stuff. Bye, guys.
Just like at home.